Take the first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
Businesses need a platform that allows people to access and manage their office workstation from anywhere and anytime. WebConnect does just that. Our browser-based desktop platform enables you to seamlessly migrate your office into a private cloud, giving you total control of your desktop, files, and important data. It's encrypted end-to-end connection, making it totally secure and ensuring peace of mind for users and administrators alike. Put WebConnect to the test and transform the way you work remotely.
Hey, Gordon.
How's it going, mate? You all right? You're asking me about, so you're asking me about TikTok, just?
Yeah.
So I got a strike on TikTok, and it was for a comment I made.
Right.
A comment to a comment on a video that I made. It's a video that went viral in Africa, and it was all about the Niger uprising. Have you heard about this?
Yeah. Oh yes. Oh yeah. I'm following that.
So they're rising up against their French colonial masters that have been stealing the wealth from Africa for decades. And the comment on the video was just something. I can't even remember exactly what the comment was, and I just responded with "Thank you, Niger." And the next thing you know, I got a strike. The comment was taken down, and I thought, this is ridiculous. I tried to appeal it, and it immediately rejected the appeal. It says, you can't even appeal this. I was like, they're going to ban me. Surely they're going to ban me. Turns out that a lot of other people started getting strikes whenever they mention Niger in their comments too. It's because the TikTok algorithm can't differentiate between Niger and a word
with 2 G's.
Not only does the TikTok algorithm think I'm racist, it also thinks I'm illiterate. And that's essentially, I mean, they have been, to be honest, they've been pretty good, TikTok of. You can't speak to anybody there. And listen, I've got no real complaints, but I do believe I'm eventually going to get, if I get successful, I'm going to get cancelled. Look what's happened to Russell Brand just recently, mate.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
What's your take on that whole thing?
Oh,
You being, in the line of work that you do.
yeah. It's highly suspect. Actually, let me put it this way. It inspires me. It really inspires me that they're taking action on this, right? Because I just can't wait for them to deal with Hunter Biden's sex crimes and to deal with the fact that Joe Biden, his sex crimes, and to deal with Epstein. Any moment now, they're going to, in all fairness, they're going to release Epstein's client list because there isn't a whiff of hypocrisy here. There isn't a whiff of them targeting somebody whose politics they don't agree with.
This is what I think they're doing, Rich, right? And these allegations, you see, these go back to as far, I think, as 2001. So what they've done is they've gone back 22 years and they're starting just with the crimes back then. And that was Russell Brand. But they're going to move on, and eventually they're going to get round to, obviously Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell and all there. It's just they're starting well before any of that.
B for Brand, that's why.
However, I mean, he's been demonetized now. What they're going to do to Prince Andrew, I don't know. It's going to be awful, isn't it?
Yeah, but also, I think the other thing is, right, Jimmy Savile's, one of Jimmy Savile's closest friends, who, when he split up from his wife, Prince Diana, used Jimmy Savile as a go-between. Now, he would have known that Jimmy Savile is a notorious, well-connected pedophile. I knew when I was 21.
Mate, the propaganda in this country is so thick. My mum, right? I talked to my mum about this. She's 80. And I remember in the 1980s, look at him. He's a pedo. Look at him. She used to say it to us all. Look at the way he's touching those girls, as she'd say, right? She always knew. She always swore. She's a always loved Princess Diana, my mum did, fell out of love, but she's always had an affinity for the royal family. She's the generation above us. They generally were more royalist, weren't they? The older you get. And the propaganda's so thick in this country. I've been saying, listen, Mum, Prince Andrew, all of the stuff with Epstein and Maxwell, photos with the royals, you know? Look at his mate, Jimmy Savile. And she was like, yeah, but just because she was friends with him, that doesn't mean he knew. And I'm like, Mum, you knew.
Yes.
You know, you knew. And she's like, oh, yeah, I didn't. And it's like the propaganda's so thick. It's almost like propagandized herself against her own memories. Yeah.
But there's something else, I think, Gordon. People don't want to acknowledge that it's there. And people don't want to acknowledge that sexual abuse goes on for real. They don't want to consider that their heroes, people they look up to, could be doing that. People don't want to acknowledge that the Great Reset is rolling out and that the injections are harmful and that they'll do it again. People don't want to acknowledge, what do you mean a DEW? What do you mean a directed energy weapon? What the hell are you talking about?
Oh, I thought you meant a different kind of Jew. I was going to say, I was going to have you cancelled from the Labour Party and everything, mate.
God forbid. No. So in terms of Russell Brand, and the thing that really made it really clear for me is when the culture secretary wrote to Rumble. The guy, okay, if the guy did it, then he should be prosecuted, right? And have his day in court. And then the jury will decide yay or nay, and that's it. But it's not for the government, for a government minister to write to Rumble and possibly YouTube and to TikTok and say, listen, can you take his channel or his material off? And I like Rumble's response, for those that don't know, which was, no, his content has nothing to do with the allegations made against him, and these are just allegations. We're not going to do that.
Somebody posted a speech from Margaret Thatcher on TikTok where Margaret Thatcher is saying, the day we have trial by media is the day that freedom has died in this country. And I agree with Margaret Thatcher, mate.
I know, Gordon.
If Russell Brand has broken the law and done the word that they say that he's done, then of course he should go to prison. But why are you starting there from years ago, and why now, just as he's getting bigger than the platform that you've got, doing your job better than you when he's been doing it 5 minutes and you've been doing it your entire lives? Why is it that you're going after the guy that's got things right for the last few years while you have habitually lied to us our entire lives? You know, and for me, it's the way that there's been no trial. There's been no charges whatsoever.
No.
Yet the government of this country are going after his funding immediately. No trial, no justice system whatsoever. No, you are persona non grata. We're going to take you down. And isn't it, when they're doing this to somebody who is thumbing in their eye at the moment and pointing at all the hypocrisies in our government, they are doing it in exactly, almost, if you get into the weeds of it, almost exactly the same way as they went after Assange with the Sweden thing, taking text messages and sentences that people have said, plucking them out and then getting them put on the screen and read out by actors with eerie music behind.
Yeah.
I said to my missus, I said to my mum, as well, because my mum was like, oh, she's been reading the propaganda, she's been reading the papers, and she's like, oh, women don't like it. I'm like, listen, can you imagine one of my ex-girlfriends, and I gave her a perfect example of a crazy bitch that I was dating back then. And I said, can you imagine if I got famous and I had 6 million, 7 million awakening wonders on YouTube who were joining me on this path to freedom and enlightenment every day, or whatever it was he says. He's so jealous of him. He does the job so much better than me. And can you imagine if I went stratospheric and had his platform and the media with all their money and all their resources all of a sudden started contacting ex-girlfriends of mine and plucking sentences that they'd said and then making them anonymous on TV and making an actor say them to eerie music. Can you imagine what they could make me look like? And I remember my mom was like, now you say it like that, it's like, it's abhorrent what they're doing to it. This is not just a smear attack of the worst of proportions. They're doing it in public, like there is no justice system, like they're acting like Judge Dredd or something like that. And isn't it just indicative that they're doing it right at the point where you've got the death of the justice system and freedom in this country coming to a point with Julian Assange, who they did this very same thing to. They didn't just attack him with a smear over the of the nefarious nature. They also immediately went after his funding whenever he became a problem as well. And that's exactly what they're doing to Russell Brand. I find the similarities here, quite frankly, sickening, mate, because nobody is getting justice here, not Russell Brand, but especially, not those women for sure, but especially women in this country who are scared to report these things to the police because, hey, they're scared the police might do something to them, let alone Russell Brand. I mean, isn't that the bigger issue here? All the rapists in our police force.
But also there was a comment by Viva Frey and Gordon and Robert Barnes. Viva Frey's a Canadian lawyer and Robert Barnes an American lawyer, and they did a critique of it. And one of the things they said is that because I didn't watch the Dispatches program, but the women, or one of the women said she regretted it. And Barnes made this really great point, is that regret isn't rape, and you demean rape. Rape is
my missus hasn't seen it. I keep saying it, watch it. And because you will see what I mean about the way they take sentences that anonymous people have said and get an actor to play them. And also, they keep saying that 5 women and 4 of them anonymous have accused him but they word it in the way so you think that 5 women have accused him of abhorrent things. No, 1 did. The other 3 accused him of something lesser, and the other one that wasn't anonymous accused him of showing her pictures of naked photos that women had sent to him, and she noticed one of the people in the pictures as her friend. I'm not even sure that Russell Brand knew. He was just like, she was his agent at the time, or sort of PA or something like that, and he was like, look, all the women who are sending me naked photos. This could be any workplace that I've worked at, certainly in the past. It happens all the time. I'm not saying it happened, well, I haven't worked in an office for years, but it used to happen quite frequently. Now, all of those things that they listed weren't crimes, but somehow it's bled into the psyche that 5 women have accused him. No, watch the documentary and watch how careful they are with the wording and the way they construct things. Propaganda is often in what is not said and the way things that are said. And I've just become acute to reading between the lines here. It's a smear job.
That's such an important point, because I don't watch TV, right? But I do see how the Guardian and the BBC frame subjects. Anything, they'll say Russell Brand. Oh, one of these mainstream media outlets talking about him. Oh, how he's cavorting with right wingers.
The far right. He's flirting with the far right.
Wait a minute. Jimmy Dore, Noam Chomsky, George Galloway.
They're flirting with the far right as well. We've got to the point now where you can just say somebody is something, and I mean, it's no wonder, is it, that we've been saying this all week, haven't we? It's no wonder that men can just say, oh, I feel like a woman now, I'm just going to identify as one, because our governments have been identifying as, the arbiters of truth.
they've been identifying them as,
we have a judicial system and a justice system in this country when we clearly don't. We're saying we're a peaceful nation where You know, look at all the wars we've been involved in. We've been identifying as things that we're not all of my life. So it's only natural that the people in the countries can think, well, if they're doing it, why can't I?
Yeah. Well, an example of the way that stories are framed is reviews of The Sound of Freedom. Now, I haven't seen The Sound of Freedom. I know about child trafficking. 8 million children disappear every year, 40,000 in the UK, 800,000 in the US. Where the hell do they go? 5 million are trafficked. So this film, Sound of Freedom, is based on the life of a guy called Tim Ballard, who rescues children who are being trafficked, and it's a docudrama. And when it came out in the US a few months ago, it box office records for an independent movie. Did really, really well. The Guardian did this really, really awful review. And I haven't seen the film, but here's what was awful about it. They said this film repeats QAnon adjacent tropes. Like there's some pedophile ring and a lot of pedophilia and child trafficking going on.
They urged that it was on anti-Semitic in some way as well, without ever really put it. They said it whiffs of it, but they never pointed to anything.
Anti-Semitic adjacent, QAnon adjacent. And I think, wait a minute, I work as a child protection social worker. So then am I doing something that's QAnon adjacent somehow? Because I deal with children that have been sexually abused, right, in my job. So it's just instead of here's this film, it's really badly done. It brings up this issue, and at the very least, let's investigate, because it's bloody serious.
Yeah, and look at the charge from the Guardian there. It's what I said. You just get to smear somebody as something, and that it's bad in people's minds. Like smear them as a right winger, smear them as a QAnon. They don't explain what Q is. They don't explain what QAnon is. They don't actually say, well, what QAnon most likely is some sort of intelligence run operation to lure idiots who are questioning things and are onto the, not necessarily idiots, but people who are questioning things and are onto the right lines of investigation with regards to government corruption, and then lead them down the garden path and get them believing in all sorts of nonsense like adrenochrome drinking and like the Clintons drinking through the blood through the head of a skull. That's the sort of stuff that QAnon is, but they don't explain that it's the QAnon. It's most likely an intelligence run operation to do that, to get people.
But even worse than that, they diminish and sideline child sexual abuse. They're running cover for pedophiles. Why on earth is the Guardian running cover for with a story that denies pedophilia and mass pedophilia? Don't go and see the film. It's about pedophilia. No, wait a minute. Pedophilia is really important. Let's see Epstein's client list. They don't do that. And then the other thing that the Guardian, it's so great to talk to you because this stuff goes on in my head, but a lot of my viewers are American.
I do this just for therapy now.
But the Guardian, there's omission, so much omission. So the day that the energy bill had its third reading, nothing in the Guardian about it. Nothing. Today I was in a co-op and I looked at the front pages of the newspapers, and it's all about Rishi Sunak saying he's backtracking on net zero. Nothing about the online safety bill, which is a horrendous assault on our freedoms and our liberty and our expression and our freedom to engage in ideas.
I watched that video you sent me on the climate bill. I watched it again today. I showed it somebody actually on the energy bill.
Yeah.
Clause 248, section 2. That means a person can have a civil penalty of up to £15,000 for going against government guidance with regards to energy efficiency. But the real scary one, and I think I swore when I responded to you when I first see it, was like, Jesus, this is like even a stretch for our horrible government. They're making it in subsection 3 of clause 248 a offence punishable by prison of up to 12 months for violating something that isn't yet written.
Yeah.
They haven't yet written the guidelines, but they've written the punishment for violating them. I can't imagine that happening. Can you imagine them any other area where that's acceptable? Where
they've done it with the online speech bill. They've done something similar. It's all done through statutory instrument, which for people not familiar with English, British civil tradition, legal tradition, that the minister can just write a rule and say, okay, this rule is now done. It's not overseen by Parliament and stuff. So with the online hate bill, or whatever it is, online speech bill, that they can say that the minister can then determine what qualifies as disinformation. There's criteria: illegal content, fair enough, like promoting child abuse, right? Or promoting violence. Content that's harmful for children, okay. Content that's harmful for adults, that's not illegal, but harmful for adults. So that might be
rather broad brush, isn't it?
Yeah. And it might be, for example, if I send you a message on WhatsApp saying, Gordon, don't take these injections, and here's why. That what will happen is that message gets intercepted by that message application. And if there's certain keywords, you won't get the message. That's one of the provisions. And then the minister can say what the keywords are. The Minister for Orwellian Truth for Propaganda, who probably went to school, got in North Korea or China or something. Right? It's horrific. And what's crazy is was it Lord Rees-Mogg? He gave a 90-second clip of him in Parliament speaking against the online speech bill. And he was one of the 19 Tory MPs that voted against the energy bill. And his point was, the people are sovereign, not Parliament. We are their servants, not their overlords. And we've forgotten that, because that's how the British Constitution is set up. And that's something that I'm getting into with common law and the Bill of Rights and Magna Carta and stuff, right? But it's ironic that one of the richest members of Parliament is standing for freedom of the ordinary human being. And
I'll
then,
tell you the truth, mate.
one more thing I'm going to say, right? One more thing. The energy bill, 19 Tory MPs voted against it. 65 Tory MPs abstained. So did the Lib Dems. They abstained. Caroline Lucas abstained. The SNP abstained. The Labour Party abstained. The DUP voted against it. So it went through entirely on Tory votes, and Labour and the Lib Dems and the SNP
didn't say anything.
Didn't say anything. And I hope you're getting it now. This whole climate change agenda is a drive to exert control over us, because the energy bill will give the minister the power to say, okay, you need to, you got a log burner, £15,000 fine unless you remove it. Here's a smart meter which can be controlled by an external agent that the minister can designate. So they can turn your electricity on or off, and all your electrical appliances have to be connected to that.
So this is going to be all, and how are they going to enforce this?
Well, through fear. £15,000 fine or 12 months in prison.
And the people who are going to enforce it on a face-to-face basis, I assume, are the police. The police.
They can call the police, and the police can use reasonable force to gain entry and install these smart meters.
I met a police officer recently who had recently quit the force. 27 years he was in the force. He left. He worked his way all the way up to detective, catching pedophiles, Rich. And he left because he had stumbled on what he thought was the biggest pedophile bust, was going to be the biggest pedophile bust of his life. Of all places, guess where this pedophile ring was, Rich?
Westminster?
Guess in what sort of establishment it was in?
We're elected
In
representatives?
a pizza parlour.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
And he went to his boss and he gave them all the evidence, and his boss said, leave it, we have not got the resources for this. These are pedophiles. These are actual pedophiles. He was detective of 27 years. He's got them. He's going to his boss and he's saying, yeah, we can get these bastards. And his boss is going, nope, leave it. So he left. And he left because they're not hunting pedophiles in the police force. They're not. They're hunting you for having a log burner. And that's where their focus is going to be. They're not catching pedophiles or rapists in this country. The police are pedophiles and rapists in some cases. Women are scared to go to the police already because, I mean, certainly I'm in London right now, and I'm telling you, every single woman that I know in London, and many of the men, are shit scared of the police and what they will do to them just because of that. And the way I've seen them act as well, just with the public, is disgusting.
Well, there's all that. How many hundreds?
We've got 1,000 police officers are either on restricted duty or are suspended right now, just in the Metropolitan Police for some sort of crime. Yeah, we'll come to that in a minute. The missus is just reminding me of something. But, you know, the point is this is what the police is now going to be used to enforce. It's not going to, violent crimes, sexual crimes like this, they don't care about them anymore. In fact, the people that are doing them most likely are the elite people and the very people that they're running protection for, because that's essentially all the police are of this. Have you heard about this stuff that's going on? Was it in Leeds, though? Leeds and Manchester, I think it was. So get this. I'm going to have to find out more about this. I really am. But there's a guy on TikTok who has been pretty solid with all the information that I've got from in the past. And he's saying that there's a school, or is it several schools, or I think it's several schools, that the school, the head teachers have written to the parents to say, we've had a threat via email, and we are now reserving the right. I don't think they even asked them to sign anything, did they? They just said, we're reserving the right to hold your children for 72 hours at the school if ever it happens again. Have you heard about this?
I didn't know the details.
And the parents who are saying to their kids, like, parents are like, what? And they're saying to their kids, listen, if this happens and they lock the school down like this and they withhold you, I want you to politely say, no, I'm leaving. I don't give you permission for this. And if they refuse, I'm going to be giving you permission to make your way out of that school, however means necessary, and I'll be waiting for you at the gates. This is what parents are now saying there to their kids up north. Wow. After the school is saying, now we've tried to think of why would the school act in this way? Why would the school say they would want to keep the kids for 72 hours? And I'm wondering whether they think it was one of the kids that have made some sort of threat. And you sort of
all made up, Gordon.
Leeds and Bradford.
Or it's made up. It's
made up.
Imagined, right? And in order to instill fear, to get us fighting amongst each other, to create an environment where lockdowns are acceptable and common practice, also to break the bonds between children and the parents, so the state now owns the children.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. This is key, isn't it? This is key.
In California, something like if a child wants to transition and the parents refuse, this may also be in Canada, they're proposing this, they can remove the child, place them in care. No. Have
you seen the video of the kid who's 4 and the guy puts £10,000, the $10,000 down in front of him and 2 Oreo cookies, and says, "What do you want? $10,000 or 2 Oreo cookies?" And the kid gets up cookies. It's like, this is why you don't let your child choose its gender, because it went for the cookies every time.
Yeah, but also, you know, you don't let them choose their gender because it's BS that you can choose your gender.
When I was 5, I wanted to be a tree.
No, you've got.
Can I identify as a tree if I'm a child? Can I?
You could.
Well, I found out that trees last hundreds of years, and I wanted to live for hundreds of years, and I didn't want to die, so I wanted to be a tree.
It's absolutely insane.
I was 5.
But no, but look, but taking it back to this, right? It's all part of their agenda to divide us and to rule us, to create conversations and reasons and excuses and justifications and structures that keep us in control.
Well, that sounds to me very much like something for the Ministry of Propaganda to inspect you for, and to take away your speech and maybe even fine you and imprison you.
Well, listen, we're just on the online speech bill. By the way, you need to get onto 3Speak, right? Fully decentralized, not hybrid Odyssey, right? Vlogging platform. There's no company behind it and stuff. Just lots of people putting it, and you own your own content. I own my content on 3Speak. Okay. But the online speech bill. So I said the disinformation. The minister can say, okay, this is what qualifies as disinformation, and there are several areas. Financial, to do with national security, finance. So if you criticize a financial policy, that could be disinformation, like CBDCs, perhaps, right? If you environment, climate, if you criticize the climate change agenda, because that's not science, it's blind religion. It's like in Saudi Arabia or some, you know, religious country, if you deny that there's a God, right? In Saudi Arabia, if you leave Islam, if you revoke being a Muslim, the punishment it's capital punishment. Apostasy. Apostates are killed.
Have you heard about the latest with regards to Saudi Arabia? You mentioned Saudi Arabia. You know, Saudi Arabia were, I think it's 40%. It's 40% of the funding behind Elon Musk buying Twitter.
Right.
The allegations are that Saudi Arabia used to have to bribe the CIA for information of any dissidents in Saudi Arabia. Bribing the CIA, I can imagine, is costly. But 40% of 40 billion, that's 16 billion that they've passed. Now, I've got it on, the rumors are that Twitter are basically just handing over any information that the Saudis want on any dissidents that are saying any speech. There's one guy who's got an egg for a logo on Twitter from Saudi Arabia with 9 followers, who said something critical of the government. I don't think it's even overcritical. He's been sentenced to death, and his brother has, even though his brother hasn't got a Twitter account at all. So Elon Musk, old bastion of free speech over there, is handing out all the information on dissidents in Saudi Arabia for them to be murdered and have their heads chopped off, because they bought 40%, helped him buy Twitter with 40% stake.
Wow.
I don't think those two things are unconnected. Do you? They used to have to bribe the CIA to get in the back door for this sort of thing, I've heard. I've got no evidence of that, of course.
It's speculation here.
Hey, 16 billion. That sounds like good business to me, to stop any dissidents in your... This is disgusting. This is like... And he won't let Alex Jones on his platform because Alex Jones said dead kids weren't dead. Meanwhile, he's literally sending people to death by handing over their information when they've been critical of the Saudi Arabian government. He doesn't give a shit about human rights, that guy. It's laughable. That's why I don't do anymore.
Yeah. Which is why I think it's important for us to move
to decentralize.
Decentralized. So get a VPN, 3Speak. I'm on Twitter. I don't use a decentralized alternative to Twitter. Macedon.
I need to learn how to use Nostra, because
Right.
that's the best alternative I've seen so far. And I know you'd like it because it's decentralized and there is no boss to it either. But yeah, I've got to I've got to learn how to do this, mate. I've been saying to you for months, I've got to do it, and it's coming very
Yeah,
soon.
well, I'll set you up for an interview with somebody about three speaker, fellow Brummie, right? And also a kindred spirit in terms of.
Hey, I'm not a Brummie. I'm from Wolverhampton. Don't say I'm from Birmingham. I don't like that.
Now, the other thing is we got to do is be ungovernable, right? Make things difficult for them. Like, are you following what's happening with the ULEZ and the LTNs and all that?
Yeah, I love it. I've got to be honest. I love seeing the fight back against this overreach of authoritarianism. You know, when you were talking about the online harm bill and all that sort of thing, I'm like, well, you've got to have this stuff. You know, otherwise we'll end up in an authoritarian regime like China. So this is just for our protection, just to make sure we don't go down that route. You see, Rich, this is why they do. I love seeing the fight back against the ULEZ, and I love seeing it costing them money. I love seeing the fact that they're having to put these cameras in almost cages right now to stop them being vandalized, and it's costing them so much money.
You know what's happening with those ones?
The ones that are putting the
armored ones. People are chopping down the poles, which makes it even more expensive. So imagine some guy, right, opposed to a restriction on his freedom of movement that he has to pay to move about the city that he lives in, right? Goes, buys an angle grinder, chops down the pole. No one's going to say anything because everybody supports what he's doing pretty much, right? Chops down the pole. So the government not only has to replace the camera, but they have to replace the whole bloody pole. And that's going to cost money and it's going to become unworkable. So they put up it takes them a couple of weeks. They put up another pole, but the guy's only paid out for his angle grinder once. So it doesn't cost him any more outlay. He comes along, chops it down again. I read something in the paper today that the camera, in some areas, the cameras are being brought down within a day of being put back up, right? And that makes the whole system unworkable, unfeasible, because it requires more and more bureaucracy and costs and administration. Some of the vans, they're using vans, mobile vans. So what people are doing, they're parking lorries and caravans and wedging the vans in, or they're spraying the van cameras, right, with spray paint, or they're stabbing the tires so they're getting punctures. So now what they're doing is they've got security guards in a car next to the van.
They're having to pay for security now for the vans that are having to replace. This is unworkable. It's
unworkable. Plus, the other thing that people are going to do, Gordon, once they see the video on your channel or my channel, is that when they get an LTN fine or a ULEZ fine or their capital gains tax or their income tax or their council tax or any other fine, they can put the money in trust, put it in an account, fill in this trust form. It's very simple to do. Send it off and say, I will pay you, provided you can prove that I'm not breaking the law by paying you by paying towards genocide. It's all explained. So we can actually engage in a tax revolt to undermine the whole process and be ungovernable even more. And I think, with the online speech bill and the energy bill and everything, people are going to work out, people are creative. We're going to find more and more ways to be ungovernable, because you cannot crush the human spirit. It's anti-nature, the Great Reset.
I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are of what's going on across the pond at the moment with Biden and the corruption and their politics over there, because obviously I talk about it a lot because I believe our sovereignty is in Washington and I believe they're the ones pulling the shots. Do you think Biden's going to be impeached?
I
bloody heard the latest.
Matt Gaetz is holding McCarthy's feet to the fire.
Yeah,
I hope so.
He's done so. The way I was hearing it was Matt Gaetz has basically done 99% of all the work here. And the analogy I heard was beautiful. It was an American, and it was like, he's got the ball on the goal line, he's run, 99 yards up the road by writing all these articles of impeachment and putting all the evidence down there with the shell companies, with the Bidens and the shell companies, and the son of a bitch, the guy was fired, and all the evidence is there, and he's handed it over to the speaker. And all he's got to do is on the 1 yard line, and all he's got to do, and somehow the guy I was listening to was like, "You watch, somehow he's going to fumble this ball."
No,
and you watch. Now.
No, because also part of the package is to deny funding to Jack Smith's political persecution of Trump, which is just evil. It like the indictment sheet for Trump, right? About election racketeering and stuff. It includes things like criminal offenses that Trump did, like when he was president, he sought advice from the White House legal counsel on what were legal ways to question an election. That's racketeering, seeking advice from a lawyer. It's just evil what they're doing.
George Bush once said that he got away with war crimes because the lawyer said so. The lawyer said he could. Just call them something else. So what was that? Was that racketeering between Bush and the lawyer? Was it?
No. Anybody can go to a lawyer and ask for advice.
And what Bush did was actually war crimes. It's like you're talking about, I want to get away with war crimes.
Yes.
All Trump is saying there is, I want to question this election that everybody else is questioning around the world.
And how can I do so legitimately?
And how can I do so within the law? That's unlawful.
Yeah, that's
but going to a lawyer and figuring out how to torture people, and then having black sites around the world, that's legal.
Yep.
And this is the country that's going around the world pointing fingers at others and saying your justice system stinks and you've got to apply things, more evenly in future. Did you see the video of the guy getting questioned about it by the reporters? He's laying out, he's saying that here's all the information, here's all the evidence that we've got of the corruption and why he needs to be impeached, all the 20 shell companies that they've got, all the millions of payments. You've got all Joe Biden's pseudonyms that he was using, all his back channels. JR Beware, I think, was one of his emails that of talking to his son. He was saying he's never dealt with his son over business, right? His son's even claimed back tax he spent on hotel rooms in meetings with his dad. He's claimed that back on the IRS. From meeting hotel rooms he had with his dad and saying, no, they weren't business. He said, well, how come you're claiming tax back on these hotel rooms that you're meeting with your dad then? You've got all of these, you've got him admitting in the tape that you've obviously seen 100 times as I have, going, well, son of the bitch, the guy got fired in Ukraine, who was investigating his son. And the media lady, the reporter, there's a gaggle of reporters, I'll send it you after this, and she says, the American people don't see that. They just think it's they just think it's quid pro quo. They just think it's political revenge. It's like, lady, look, all the evidence is here. And she's like, well, the people don't see that. And he's like, because you don't report on it.
That's right.
It's like, oh, goddamn. It must be like tearing your hair out to see these people. Well, the American people who we're supposed to tell about these things and we don't tell them, they don't know about it. And he's like, you goddamn imbecile, how can you be that airheaded? But they kind of are. They're like, the American people don't see this. It's like, because you're not showing it them, because you're only showing them when it's one way. Can you imagine if Donald Trump Jr., if it was his laptop and not Biden's?
All over.
And it was pictures of Donald Trump Jr. with Russian prostitutes.
Yep. And if
that's just the prostitute stuff. I'm not bothered about that. But can you imagine the media if it was?
Yeah, absolutely. And if
payments from China, from Russia, from Ukraine.
And if it was Donald Trump's
energy board in Ukraine, the shares in companies that were doing in biolabs, that were working on ways to poison just ethnic Russians. You don't think there's any corruption there whatsoever. But whenever Trump farts and all of a sudden, yeah, we've got to get him for, we're going to put him in prison, we're going to impeach him for toxic nature towards
climate change. He farted and it raised global temperatures.
But you're not doing it, you're not looking anywhere. And with regards to the Russell Brand thing, just to circle back to the Russell Brand, the BBC, remember, they don't report on the Biden laptop because it can't be verified. None of these women's accusations have been verified, have they? Yeah. Against Brand from 15 years ago.
And actually, somebody should let the BBC know the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop are on the web. You can go and see them. You can actually look through them, and Hunter Biden is suing.
Especially look for his text messages with his, I think, his sister or
yes,
the family members, with regards to them telling him to stay away from their daughter.
From his niece. But he's suing the agency that released his laptop onto the web.
The FBI?
No, it wasn't the FBI. It's Marco Polo, this group. I think that's the name of the group. So Hunter Biden is suing them for releasing his laptop information onto the web. So if that isn't verification for the BBC, I don't know what is. Don't know what is. But Gordon, we live in an
pictures all over the end of him with Russian. He's all over. He's with guns, naked, with his cock out. I've gone through them in detail. They're not a pretty sight. They're really not. And like I said, I'm not really. That's the stuff I'm not bothered about. The stuff with the prostitutes. I mean, I should be really, because of the compromat that, you know, the president's son could be exposed to with regards to, you know, of that nature. If it was if it's Donald Trump Jr., you know that CNN would be talking about that until the cows come out. Oh, Russians could get him in compromat here. This is the crime for blackmail. I'm not bothered about that. All the stuff with the drugs. Hey, I've had drug problems as well in the past. I've got but with regards to the corruption and the clear corruption here, as far as I'm concerned, it's black and white. It's there for all you got to do is look. And no, we can't verify it. Well, he's suing them for putting his laptop on the internet. No, we can't verify that his. Look at Russell Brand. Look at what these women have said about Russell Brand. Pay no attention to that. Why? How do they know, the BBC and the media in this country, how do they know not to report on this? Are they being told? Not specifically, you can't? Yeah. Is there a notice on it?
They're captured, they're owned. Completely captured and owned. They get their funding from, get a lot of their funding from Vanguard and whoever, and then the people above them in government are owned. You know, we're gonna have to finish up soon, Gordon, but I want to.
We've got to start doing something, Rich, and withholding the tax is brilliant. I love that. I love that idea. We've got to start doing it. The answer is with us. Then it's a waste of time waiting for them to act.
Yeah, build local networks, go decentralized, use a VPN, FreeSpeak, Nostra, others, decentralized agencies, be ungovernable.
I agree, man.
That's right. Gordon, listen, absolutely great talking to you as ever. Really, really appreciate it. Everybody, comments, questions in the description below. Please share this video far and wide, because we do want people to know what is going on and wake up to it. And more and more people are, Gordon. More and more people are.
Well, they would have to really be asleep to not look at the world and go, well, something's up.
Yeah.
All of this war, all of these, something's up with the world, you know. And somebody said something the other day that struck a chord with me. They said that COVID stopped and shocked people. It's like it stopped people, and it interrupted their daily lives. And then all of a sudden, they got to look around a little bit, and they started thinking, "That's weird. That country that says it's all anti-war, it's been at war a lot, hasn't it? And isn't it weird how they're all condemning Russia, but nobody condemned us when we killed Gaddafi and mowed the lawn over here. I do think that COVID really did wake a lot of people up, and a lot more people are waking up as a result of that. I do think there's something to it. You're right.
Yep. Yep.
And good. Fantastic. More of it, please.
Yeah, we will prevail. All right, Gordon. Look forward to speaking to you soon. All the best. Bye-bye.
Take care, mate. Pleasure as always.